Is CRT in your schools? We'll use our local school district to help you find out. First off, what is CRT? This former Portland Public School teacher explains.
I use 5 tenets, and one in which comes from Derek Bell, who is one of the original creators of critical race theory.
What are the 5 tenets?
The 5 tenets that I look at, or we look at in our space, are whiteness is property, critique of liberalism, whiteness is property, critique of liberalism. Now I'm like on the spot and I'm like stressing. No, that's okay. Interest convergence, and it's escaping me right now because I'm nervous.
We can help you out. Here's the list from your Critical Race Studies course syllabus. This can be a bit challenging as there are so many different variations of what CRT is. This is part of the reason using CRT in public education, especially K-12, is so divisive. If this were well studied and well researched, then there should be no trouble defining it. Let's explore how this unproven, ill-defined theory makes its way into public K-12 schools. The first and most common way is through DEI leaders and programs.
I use a critical race theory lens. That's not something new. I've said that before, so I want to make sure, I'm not familiar with what the NEA said about critical race theory, but I want to be clear that this isn't me saying I'm secretly using critical race theory. As a person in this role, as a student of ethnic studies in college, it was part of my studies. It's part of how I analyze the data that we use.
Activists in the community also help pave the way for CRT.
Jen Burleton is part of a group in support of masks, inclusivity, and critical race theory.
I do support the need for more comprehensive education about the true racial history of this country, and critical race theory is one of the ways in which we can do that.
Teachers' unions have also been working hard for years to bring CRT to kids' classrooms.
The highest single leverage change that you would experience in this district is if everyone had white privilege and awareness.
Now that we've covered what CRT is and how it gets into public schools, let's see how it shows up. First, you might see a heavy focus on group identities. These likely will be worded in ways to sound positive and inclusive, using terms like literacy, allyship, affinity, and equity. In reality, they are meant to normalize thinking of each other not as individuals, but as the product of overlapping social identities. This has led to an ever-increasing list of group identities as CRT proponents try to keep up the mirage of inclusivity. Just listen to this public school DEI leader in a recent public meeting. Take it away, Pat.
Race, ethnicity, color, religion, national origin, immigration status, language, family, economics, age, culture, geographic location, mobility, gender and sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, disability, or initial proficiencies.
Okay, got them all? You'll also see these new terms and concepts pop up everywhere, from teachers' unions providing training for educators and coloring books for kids, school district news, resources, and curricula, and worse yet, in classrooms. You may not be surprised by these examples in middle and high school. But it doesn't stop there. Even kindergarten students are exposed to the use of CRT in what and how they are taught.
It makes me feel guilty sometimes, even though it's not my fault. Like, I feel guilty for having a privilege that, I don't deserve.
Their CRT response strategy? Deny, deny, and deny again. This elementary school principal proudly shows her commitment to CRT concepts like institutional racism and white privilege. When challenged, though, she quickly responded with another newsletter to deny it. This email from a school board director is both funny and disturbing. Months after the district publicly acknowledged using CRT, she still says they don't. She goes on to shame the person asking about it for being divisive. And here is that newsletter from 5 months earlier where the district acknowledges they use CRT and encourages everyone to learn more about it. And then we have the big 2 national teachers unions. During her speech on July 6, 2021, AFT President Randy Weingarten discussed CRT. She said CRT is not taught in schools, and then went on the attack against those saying it was. Oddly, just days earlier, the NEA adopted New Business Item 39 at their annual meeting, which unambiguously supported CRT. So how do schools handle staff, parents, and others who push back? Let's see how this was addressed during a mandatory district-wide equity summit last year in Beaverton.
So if you're being resistant, I understand that, but you're going to have to eventually come to the light, because if you're going to keep with those old views of colonialism, it's going to lead to being fired, because you're going to be doing damage to our children, trauma.
So that was from one of their peers, but what does the superintendent think?
I do want the message to get out there that this isn't optional anymore. We've waited for the willing, and if you're not willing, maybe this isn't the right place for you to work. I'll just put it like that. Maybe we can free up your future, because if we're going to become an anti-racist school district, it just can't be a few people. It's got to be everybody, to include our staff, to include our students, and our community, eventually our community. So.
Superintendent Grotting made it clear that they see it as their mission to roll out this new way of thinking to their staff, students, and the community. When we asked their DEI leader about whether this is going outside their lane, so to speak, he likened it to the work they've done to help provide food to families. They truly believe it is their duty to transform the entire community. What may be most difficult for parents to hear is many school leaders believe that if a parent pushes back against CRT or this new ideology, they are committing acts of trauma against their own children. And now we've arrived at our final section. Does CRT actually work? CRT is claimed to fix many things like graduation rates, disciplinary rates, student achievement, and mental health issues. But does it? Are there any research studies or objective evidence of any kind? That's been my #1 question since getting involved over a year ago. I've asked many school and government leaders those questions, and I'll share with you everything they've told me. You know, come to think of it, there was one school board member who did answer my question.
But how can we have data if we've not tried it yet?
I hope this helps you find if CRT is in your schools. And remember, when there are no research studies or objective evidence to support the direction you're being pushed in, then you are the research study. You are the experiment. Thank you.